I was riding high, Our relationship was the kind that filled my social media feed with envy, painting the picture of a true relationship stories long in the making, all thanks to my boyfriend, Leo, who was undeniably the complete package. Successful, impossibly charming, and dressed like he walked off a runway. Oh boy, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot, ready to settle into this picture-perfect life, which is precisely why the first subtle whispers from the outside world felt so jarring. It's wild how often the things we value most are built on the shakiness of perception. Listen up. When folks start commenting, not out of malice, but genuine confusion about his style being a bit much, or his overly close platonic male friends, that's when you have to stop and consider the landscape. He had this je ne sais quoi, this magnetic energy that everyone loved, but they were the ones asking if he was secretly a stylist or maybe just experimenting in college, creating the first thread of a toxic relationship stories that was purely based on societal projection. Come on! Ignoring collective intuition is often the cost of maintaining a comfortable lie. Jeez, the irony is that his perfection became the problem. He was almost too well put together. Wowzers. Every hair in place, every outfit curated like an art exhibit, making people wonder if his real passion was me or his image. This external questioning didn't just target him, it targeted us, forcing me to defend the perfect illusion I was so desperate to protect. But holy cow, the moment you start constantly rationalizing his behaviors to others, you've already subconsciously started asking the question yourself, which naturally leads us to those specific curious behaviors. Seriously though, if you've ever been in a relationship story as long where you feel like a beautiful accessory rather than the star, you know exactly what I mean by the hyper-focus. Leo wasn't just fashionable, he was absolutely obsessed with the visual narrative, critiquing the lighting in a restaurant, spending hours agonizing over his friend's tie for a wedding, or correcting my posture in photos. Wowzers, details that felt disproportionate to the actual moment. This intense attention to outward presentation was the first unsettling frack in the foundation of our seemingly perfect life. I mean, come on, think about it. A truly engaged partner focuses on connection, not control of the aesthetic. But Leo's energy was almost entirely external, making everything feel like a performance, a critical piece of any toxic relationship stories. A great practical example, if you're dating someone and they're more concerned with the brand of wine they order for the waiter's benefit than whether you actually like the taste, that's a clue. They're investing in the audience, not the relationship itself. And that dynamic is exhausting. Oh boy, that hyper-focus on the external inevitably extended to his social circle, specifically his incredibly attractive and always single male friend, Marco. Marco wasn't just a buddy, he was a constant fixture, a source of endless shared glances and inside jokes that left the protagonist feeling like she was eavesdropping on a private conversation. Good grief, this wasn't mere friendship, it was an emotional intimacy that screamed, I'm already invested elsewhere, gently pushing the protagonist toward the inevitable internal battle she'd soon face. Good grief, this is where the real silent war starts, inside the protagonist's mind, a classic chapter in any relationship story as long that is secretly falling apart. You're trapped between the sunk cost fallacy, all the time and hope you've invested, and the cold hard logic of the evidence you're actively trying to ignore. She loved Leo deeply, and that loyalty became the heavy anchor that kept her from simply walking away, forcing her to constantly defend her choice against the growing internal noise. Wowzers, denying the truth often feels safer than facing the possibility of a devastating loss. Listen up, the mind is a master of rationalization, turning red flags into harmless quirks. She'd catch herself thinking, he's just sensitive, or he works in a creative field, of course he's meticulous about clothes, twisting the narrative to protect the illusion of stability from being labeled a toxic relationship stories. A great practical antidote here is journaling. Write down the factual observations. For example, he canceled on me to go to an impromptu art show with Marco without adding your emotional spin. This external record prevents your heart from constantly rewriting history. I mean, come on, that gnawing feeling, that gut instinct that something is fundamentally misaligned is your subconscious shouting the truth, and it's always right. It's just often inconvenient. Leo's smooth and non-committal answers and his avoidance of deep future talks started to feel less like casualness and more like deliberate deflection, a subtle way of keeping her at arm's length. Oh boy, this agonizing limbo, this fight between what she desperately wanted to believe and what she terrifyingly knew to be true, is exactly what sets the stage for a moment of unavoidable confrontation. Holy cow, the moment I decided to face the music, but was too scared to hit the main notes, that's when the indirect confrontation began, and Leo was so ready for it. I tried to bring up the rumors lightly, maybe saying, "Someone at work asked if you were secretly a model," hoping he would laugh and shut down the subject. But his response was always a devastating masterclass in deflection, turning the knife back on me. Seriously though, this immediate shift of blame is the absolute textbook definition of toxic relationship stories. You bet he'd smoothly execute the gaslighting maneuver, turning my gentle inquiry into a personal attack on him, implying that my questions stemmed from my own insecurity or mistrust. He'd look genuinely wounded and ask, "Why are you letting other people ruin our beautiful relationship stories, Long? Don't you trust me?" Placing the guilt squarely on my shoulders for even daring to voice a single doubt. I realized then that when someone makes your valid feeling about their actions your flaw, you are being systematically manipulated, and I needed to recognize that pattern. Wowzers, he was so slick, so confident in his ability to lie without saying a direct lie that for a split second, I almost doubted my own sanity, wondering if I was the jealous, overly emotional one he made me out to be. That cold denial sealed my frustration. It didn't prove his innocence, it proved his priority was saving his image, not easing my mind. And that realization was the spark that pushed me from quiet doubt into actively searching for the truth he was so desperately trying to keep hidden. I mean, come on, when you're deep in one of these drawn-out relationship stories long, you start looking for definitive proof, something tangible that can't be twisted by gaslighting. I was exhausted from fighting the emotional war, so I shifted my focus to facts. And the breakthrough came unexpectedly late one night while Leo was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, you bet, but his phone buzzed incessantly with a notification from an encrypted messaging app I didn't recognize, one he never used around me. Geez, the moment I saw the app icon, my heart dropped. It was the same one my tech-savvy friend had warned me about for hidden conversations, often used in toxic relationship stories to maintain secrecy. The notification preview was cryptic, but mentioned a dinner with Marco, not the casual pizza night he'd told me about, but a high-end reservation. It wasn't direct proof of infidelity, holy cow, but it was irrefutable evidence of calculated, deliberate deception about his whereabouts and his real intimacy level with Marco. Wowzers. That small telling detail, the hidden app, the lie about the reservation, shattered my ability to rationalize his behavior any further. That screenshot I took wasn't just evidence, it was the final devastating piece of clarity I needed to stop believing his perfect facade and start accepting the ugly reality of our situation. That realization immediately led me to wonder why I was the last person to know and who I could possibly trust with this explosive secret. Oh boy, once I had that evidence, that cold knot of truth in my stomach, I knew I couldn't confront him alone. I was too emotionally invested and too deep in the cycle of toxic relationship stories. I realized that the defining feature of a situation like this is the isolation it breeds, so I needed an anchor. Someone wise and detached who could see the full scope of our relationship stories long. I didn't need sympathy, I needed strategic clarity, like
the kind of tough love you find in Napoleon Hill's work. Seriously though, I chose my older cousin, who's an absolute mentor figure, someone who has seen it all and doesn't mince words. I laid out the evidence, the whispers, the hyper-focus, the gaslighting, and the kidnap, and she didn't react with shock. She reacted with calm, authoritative affirmation. She made me write down the facts, separating them from my feelings, which is a powerful practical tool for gaining perspective, showing me that the problem wasn't my paranoia, but his calculated deception. Listen up. That external validation was revolutionary. She confirmed that his behavior wasn't just about his orientation, but about his fundamental lack of respect, using me as a shield to maintain his desired image. I mean, come on. She helped me label the situation correctly, giving me the objective language I needed to understand that I wasn't losing a great love, but escaping a deeply unhealthy dynamic, which was the final push I needed before diving into the thorny question of his true motives. I mean, come on, this is the difficult part of any toxic relationship stories, figuring out why he's doing this, because it's rarely just about the obvious surface reason. My mentor cousin helped me see that Leo's issue wasn't just his attraction to men, it was his fear of losing the high-status image he had cultivated. The house, the job, the acceptance from his conservative family, all of which were predicated on the performance of a perfect relationship stories, along with a woman. Wowzers, I realized I wasn't his partner, I was a vital prop in his carefully constructed life. Listen up. His motive was deeply rooted in cowardice and entitlement, using my genuine love as a cheap form of social insurance to avoid societal judgment. Think of it like a business transaction. He got the cover story and I got the illusion of a great relationship, but the price I paid was my sanity and self-respect. A great example of this behavior is someone who buys high-end designer items only for the label to show, not because they genuinely love the piece. The external approval is the sole currency. You bet. That realization shifted my entire perspective. This wasn't about whether he was gay or not. It was about the fundamental disrespect of lying and exploiting my emotions to maintain his facade. Holy cow. Seeing myself as an exploited resource rather than a spurned lover gave me the objective clarity I needed. But understanding his motive only brought up the next huge question. How do you safely dismantle the life of a man who depends entirely on his image without utterly destroying your own?